What's good, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Lotus also the one who never knows best, and in today's video I want to talk to you guys again about Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls. But we're going to cover some of the same stuff, but also going to add more to it today than what we talked about in yesterday's video, which, by the way, I greatly, and I mean greatly, appreciate all of the feedback that I got on yesterday's video, because I was hesitant to even record it in the first place, and then after I recorded it and things got to where they did by the end of that video, I was reluctant to even post it. And I got a lot of positive reinforcement on that one, and it just kind of like reassured me that like I'm not insane, that I'm not crazy, and that you guys do want to hear and see me speak candidly and genuinely on those types of things and in that manner. So it's not going to be like a super regular thing that I do all the time, but it lets me know that I don't have to be afraid to do that type of thing. But that being said, obviously yesterday's video, if you haven't seen it, I definitely recommend going and check it out. But we talked about how Riot laid off half of the staff for 2xKO and what that could mean for the game and the issues with that, and you know what the future that may be. Still hoping for the best for 2xKO. I still want to see the game succeed. Then we also spoke on Marvel Tokon and some of the things that I'm not the biggest fan of with that game, and then also that we got the reveal that there's going to be 20 characters at launch on the roster of that game. So what I want to go ahead and do in today's video is talk a bit about just Marvel Tokon and speak on the things that I like about the game, the things that I don't like, changes or improvements that I would like to see, that I hope to see, or anything like that, as well as kind of gear my expectations or my hopes for tomorrow. Because if you aren't aware, tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern, Thursday, February 12th, there's going to be a PlayStation State of Play, which is like, you know, a video game show or direct or whatever you want to call it, where they're going to be showing, you know, news and trailers and all these different types of things for a variety of games, including Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls. And so at some point in this video, we're going to talk about what I expect or hope to see in whatever screen time Tokon gets at the State of Play. Before we do dive into things, I do want to preface this by saying that I am still excited for Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls. I want that game to succeed. I want it to be massively popular. I've got a little bit of apprehensions. Like I said, I got my red flags, whatever. I have my concerns, my eyebrows raised. You know what I mean? But I think the game is going to be, I think it's going to do better than 2xKO. Let me go ahead and say that baseline, I think it's probably going to be more successful than 2xKO is. And for what it's worth, I have more faith in Arxis, I guess, than I do in Riot as far as the developer goes, especially when it comes to fighting games, because it's not like Riot had all this expertise or experience in the fighting game field, even though they had a lot of FGC people on the team. But Arxis, like we all know and love them, right? Not that they're perfect, you know what I'm saying, but they kind of are like the darling of the FGC right now, I would say, to most people, unless you're just like super hardcore Street Fighter and you're in love with Capcom. So anything I say in this video, I just want you to know it's not me hating on Arxis, it's not me hating on Tokon, it's not me wanting to see them fall or fail or flop or anything like that, because I want to love this game. Straight up, I want Marvel Tokon to be my next DBFZ. I want that to be my new main game. I want that to be the fighting game that I play every single day for hours on end, that I'm making a bunch of content on. That's what I'm really and truly hoping for. So I just want that to be understood. That being said, enough yapping. We can get into it. First and foremost, what are some things that I really like about Marvel Tokon? First and foremost, I think the visuals and presentation for this game are chef's kiss, top notch. Honestly, the best since DBFZ in my opinion. I just feel like when it comes to the actual graphics, the art style, the animations of these characters, the UI, everything, it is phenomenal. I have absolutely zero complaints. I love every single aspect of this game from a visual standpoint, from a presentation standpoint, the music, the UI, the designs, the costumes, like it's all phenomenal. The stage design as well, at least how they look visually. We'll get to the stages a little bit later on. There's something that I don't like, but as far as the way the stages look, they also all look incredible. Tons of Easter eggs as well, scattered throughout for, you know, more seasoned comic book and Marvel fans than myself, which is not saying a lot because I haven't really read that many comic books, and by that many I mean any. To be completely honest with you, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I'm some diehard Marvel fan, because I'm not. But I think they absolutely knocked it out of the park when it comes to all of that stuff. Secondly, I think that there are some interesting like concepts or ideas that they do. I wouldn't necessarily say that I love it, but it is interesting. First of all, the whole 4v4 thing in and of itself is like, that's really never been done for. So it's like, okay, that's interesting. And also the whole concept of like unlocking your assists as the game progresses and kind of just like leveling up and become more powerful as the fight progresses. Like, I also think that's rather interesting. Now, when it comes to the whole 4v4 thing and the unlocking assists, I think it could be implemented a little bit better, but conceptually, I think it is unique. I think it's like, okay, they might be onto something with this. I also think that just the overall foundation for the game is something that I could see myself really enjoying. It does feel reminiscent to other games I've played. You know, the one I feel like I've been saying its name a lot lately, which you know the one. There are definitely some elements there that feel very familiar. You know what I mean? While I definitely have my criticisms when it comes to the game's systems and overall gameplay, I do think that the skeleton that's there is good. And it's one of those things where I just think, you know, which is just a little bit of fine tuning, we could really be in business. Now, I know I went on a whole spiel yesterday about, you know, potential and how these games never reach their potential, but I'm always praying for these games to reach their potential. You know what I'm saying? I think Marvel Tokon is a game with a lot, and I mean a lot, of potential. That being said, I do have my fair share of criticisms, so let's get into it. So, what are some things that I don't enjoy so much about the game? Well, number one, I don't feel as though tagging is really that incentivized in the game. In Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls, it's 4v4, but unlike most tag fighters, each character does not have their own individual health bar. Your entire team shares one health bar, and the biggest incentive you normally have in these games for swapping your characters out is to preserve your team and keep your characters alive. And oftentimes these games will also have recoverable health, where when your character is not actively on the battlefield and they're in the back, they're recovering health. That's not a thing in this game, so the biggest reason you usually have for swapping out is immediately eliminated. Now, this is an active tag game, so you are still swapping characters here and there when you're doing like certain mix-ups and combos, but even then, it just feels like something is missing. And to be honest, that's something that at a lot of levels of play, you really won't see a lot from like the casual audience to the lower levels, you know what I mean? And it's something that'll like happen on accident, but I feel like it was very intuitive, you know what I'm saying, for a lot of players to pick up a game like a DMZ, like, oh snap, my character's health is getting low, I should swap them out. You know what I'm saying? Just instinctually, you're just like, oh, I should preserve my team. I guess this is not something that you have to worry about in this game, but it's just all the more reason where it's just like, huh, I guess I just don't really have a reason to where I would need to switch characters here other than me just wanting to. And I'm speaking about that from the perspective of like, you know, like a beginner or like casual level player, you know what I mean? Obviously at like competent levels of play, you're gonna see people doing these mix-ups and these combos where they're gonna be swapping characters and stuff. Another hang up I have right now with the game, and this might even be more important arguably, is that I feel like a common sentiment I've been seeing a lot of people say, and I agree with this and I've said it myself, is that the game doesn't truly feel like a 4v4 tag game. It feels more like you're playing a 1v1 game and you just have 3 assist characters. And honestly, you know what it kind of reminds me of? And it's funny because Maximilian, I believe, spoke on this briefly on stream. He compared it to being like a 2D arena fighter. And it feels in some ways, again, like, listen carefully. It feels reminiscent of like a Naruto Storm, specifically like Naruto Storm 4. Now let me explain, okay? In Naruto Storm 4, you have a team of 3 characters, right? So you have your main character, then you have 2 assists. You can also swap to those characters as well. And so it feels similar where it's like you only have 1 health bar between those 3 characters, and there's an active tag or like leader switch mechanic in Storm as well, where you can swap characters into combos. You can call an assist and then swap to that character. It's very, very similar. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not trying to say that Tokon is just a glorified arena fighter, but I'm just saying the comparison is there. It's somewhere in between DBFZ and like a Naruto Storm game. Like it just reminds me of that. And with them marketing it as like this tag game and as a 4v4, it just right now doesn't truly feel that way to me. That's also something that could change with time. And that's another thing that I should say as well, is that some of these things that I'm talking about could absolutely change with time. We have no idea how the game has changed since those first 2 betas. I mean, obviously from the first beta to the second, nothing really seemed to have changed at all. But from that second beta to now, we don't know what's gonna change, you know what I'm saying, if anything. And we don't know what we're gonna see in tomorrow's trailer. Beyond that as well, we didn't even have like a training mode, you know what I'm saying, in either of those betas, so people could only figure out so much. You know, the amount of time people were able to spend with it was pretty limited. So the game could evolve a lot. That can't be stressed enough when it comes to like depth and, you know, combo structure and all so many different things, right? The game didn't get solved, you know, in a couple of days of beta play. Like that's never going to happen. People do have their gripes, myself included, with what we were able to get out of it thus far. But you know what I'm saying, only time's gonna truly tell. Like we're gonna have to wait at least a month until having the game in our hands before we can truly say, okay, like we really need some overhauling here, or, you know, some reworking of some of these systems and these mechanics. Even then, you know what I'm saying, we're still not gonna know everything. But yeah. But with that being said, I'm obviously still going to talk about some of those things, because to some extent I'm giving you like my impressions or how I feel about certain things as they are, and what I would prefer or how I think it could be better based on what I've experienced up to this point and from what I've seen other people talking about. My next point though, and this is something that I think isn't going to change in terms of, well, unless it's something that they've already altered in some way, like we don't have to have the full game for this to be a thing, right? The stage transitions. I think stage transitions are very cool, but I think they are honestly interruptive and intrusive to the gameplay of this game. I think the wall breaks happen too often. I don't know exactly how many wall breaks are possible per stage, and if it's like the same amount on every single stage. I think there was a stage in the last beta where there weren't any at all, and to be honest, that seems like it's better. You know, a lot of games today, a lot of fighting games today are trying to be like more cinematic and more of a spectacle for the average viewer, you know, whether that's thinking about it from an esports perspective and tournaments and things of that nature or what. But they're trying to make things a lot flashier for the casual audience or the general audience, whether that's the casual player or the casual spectator. And to some extent, I get that. But, you know, Tekken is suffering from this, where there's just all these zoom ins and slowdowns and everything like that. DBFZ got criticized for this a lot in its heyday. And it's one of the reasons why tournaments went on for so long in that game. And I don't mean just in terms of like the amount of years that they were happening, but I mean like DBFZ top 8 would generally take much longer than other games just because there's so many like stopping points and so many like cinematics in that game. And don't get me wrong, they look good. And I never really felt like they were super intrusive, but in Tokon, I do feel like the constant like wall breaks and stage transitions and everything like that are intrusive to the gameplay and do kind of like disrupt the flow. And it's something that I wasn't really a big fan of. And I think you could just solve that by just making it so that there's only like one wall break per stage. You know what I mean? I think that's a common sentiment as well from what I remember seeing back during the betas, that people just felt like it was happening too often. And I agree. Another thing that I kind of want to talk about with the game is that, again, this is something that like we don't have to have the full game necessarily to really comment on this, is that the game feels just a little bit clunky, to be completely honest. It doesn't feel super smooth or super fluid. Just kind of like moving around on the screen and calling your assists, it just doesn't have good feel. Like I'm sorry that I'm just kind of like going off vibes with this one, but it's just like the vibes just ain't really, you know what I'm saying? I don't know how to really articulate that any better, but it just doesn't feel that great. Particularly, you know, what, to be specific, one of my issues is that it has the same problem that I kind of had with 2xKO, where because one of your assists is a back assist, trying to call that assist in neutral feels weird if you're trying to move forward and then call the back assist. And then beyond that, you also have air assist in the game, which like I wasn't really a fan of at all, especially if you're trying to do something like jump and call an assist or something of that nature, right? You can't like call the same assist on the ground that you can in the air, and then you have like this weird like situation, like let's say you want to like run and jump and call an assist, you have to like run up, stop, call the assist, then jump, and it just feels awkward, you know what I mean? Like it just doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel like what I'm accustomed to in other games. And as far as how you fix this, I mean, straight up, like I feel like you could just remove the air assist entirely and the game would be better off for it. Now that's maybe going a bit too far, because again, like, you know, the things could change so much in terms of how we play the game and how we feel about it once it's officially released. But I wasn't really feeling the whole air assist thing anyway. Like I kind of like it, I guess, in theory, but in execution, I just wasn't really a fan. Once I actually was trying to play the game, I'm just like, I just want to be able to do, I just want to jump and call Vegeta assist, bro. Like, you feel me? So yeah, there's that. And then honestly, just the movement in the game just doesn't feel to me just as fluid and smooth as I would like. But, and you know, I don't really know if we can expect that to change too. Speaking of assists though, I kind of want to get into that a little bit deeper, because the assists are very homogenized in this game. And what I mean by that is that every character basically has the exact same assist, because the way they work is that the position on your team the character is in determines the assist that you get. So forward assist, you know, down assist and back assist is always going to be the same thing no matter what character is there. And in a way that's like kind of clever. Like that's a really easy way to try to get, again, the more casual audience into the game and be able to understand and interact and call those assists and everything of that nature. Like I get that, you know what I'm saying? These developers, they're so like hell-bent on like making the game more accessible while still trying to maintain like a high skill ceiling, but like just lowering that floor as much as possible. And well, to be honest, I think that kind of makes the game more boring and like stifles creativity. Like if you look back at DBFZ, and obviously I'm just gonna make so many comparisons to Dragon Ball FighterZ. It's just to be expected at this point, right? We look back at that game, when it initially launched, each character only had one assist, and that was a criticism of the game to some extent. And you could argue that it limited team compositions, but at the same time, I feel like that limitation of one assist and each assist being, you know, unique, and you know, there was obviously some overlap. Like there were similar, like you have multiple characters that have a beam assist. There were, you know, a category of assists that were just all neutral assists or like DP assists. You know what I'm saying? Like there was obviously like similar types, but you would have characters where it's like, I only have this one assist, but I want to play this character. So it encouraged players, it incentivizes them to get more creative and innovative with how they utilize those assists. Like, I'll never forget the types of combos people were coming up with to try to use like a Go Tanks assist in season 1 or a Kid Buu assist in season 1, which were lockdown assists that really meant more for, you know, trying to mix your opponent up, but they were figuring out how to use it in neutral, how to creatively get in on your opponent in neutral and then immediately into that setup, or how to even use it in a combo. You know, it inspired some really dope ideas that you really wouldn't have seen otherwise. Now, that being said, even DBFZ eventually ended up adding multiple assists, which I was a fan of, even if I didn't like C assists in particular. But I think that would be better for this game, where if you just had multiple assists per character and you were just able to choose which assist that you wanted. Sure, the way it works right now, it means that you can just play any team of characters that you want and it just like works. You don't have to worry about like team comp or synergy or anything like that. But it just, like I said, it just kind of makes it more boring. Like it just creates like a lack of like player expression, I feel, to some extent. And you wouldn't even have to remove the system. Like if you just still wanted this in place because your main concern is like, again, making the game like accessible or like casual friendly, you could just have like a stylish mode and like technical mode kind of thing or whatever, right? Or like an easy assist option. Like you can make it so that, you know, you could pick whether or not you want like the easy assist or like the default where it's set up like that, where you pick any characters, they have these 3 generic assists and whichever order they're in, that's how your team works. But you can have like a manual option where it's like, these are the assists the characters have. You can pick, you know, who you want where and which assist that they're using. And I think that would make the game a lot better, more interesting, more creative and expressive. And I just feel like that would be better. And then, yeah, because then the same thing goes, like you can see, I'm thinking of stuff like, because like I had some stuff in my head, but I'm even thinking about it further as I'm sitting here talking, because you could then apply that same thing to like how the assists work as well when you're playing the game, where it's like, oh, like you jump, you get this type of assist if you're in like the easy mode or the easy assist, you know, mode or whatever. But then like if you're not playing with that, you know what I'm saying, you get the manual stuff that you want, where I can just jump and call a regular assist in neutral the way I would prefer. See, I feel like that's a fire idea, man. I wouldn't be mad at that at all. Man, see, now I'm gonna be sad when that don't happen. and again, I'm probably gonna say this multiple times throughout this video. I can't stress enough, right? The game's not out yet. We've only had a couple of betas, and neither of those betas had training mode. So there's gonna be so much that gets figured out about how this game works and its systems and its mechanics and how to optimize things and how to play and whatever amount of creativity expression there is. People are going to figure it out eventually, but that hasn't happened yet. It just does feel a little bit limited or stifled in some ways right now, in my opinion. Also, I'm reminded of a quote, and I don't remember the quote like word for word, bar for bar off the top of my head. Maybe if I Google it, I could find it. But I think it was back when MVCI was coming out, and I don't remember if this was a developer or somebody who worked for Capcom or whatever, but they said something to the effect of like, people don't care about characters, they just care about the functions. And this was kind of in response to the fact that MVCI's roster was very like lackluster and underwhelming. And we're gonna talk about roster here in a moment, but like, you know, the lack of X-Men and particularly Wolverine, people were like, oh, well, as long as you have like the same function, like people won't really care. People did not respond well to that, because they do in fact care. It is not just about function. Both of them matter, but I'm personally somebody who, like, truth be told, I care a lot about the physical design of my character, whether it's a character that I already know or somebody that's brand new to me. Just because the gameplay is sick doesn't mean that I'm gonna play them. I have to also think that the character looks cool. Both of them matter, you know what I'm saying? There might be a character that looks cool, but I think his gameplay is whack, or vice versa, where I think the gameplay is dope, but he's ugly, so I don't want to play him. Like, I care about stuff like that, and a lot of other people do as well. And when you're talking about something like Marvel, learn from MVCI. People care about their characters, okay? People care a lot about which characters are involved, which leads me to my next thing. And this isn't really a matter of like me liking or not liking, it's just more so like one of my biggest concerns with the game right now is the roster. As we mentioned in yesterday's video, it has been confirmed via the Steam page that I almost called it MVCI, Marvel Tokon is going to launch with a 20 character roster, which is not the end of the world. I spoke very passionately about it in my video yesterday, but it's not the end of the world. But to me, that is a bit low. You know, I was really hoping for like 28 to 30. That might've been a bit ambitious, but even then I was like, surely like at least like 24, 25. You know, DBFZ launched with 24, and DBFZ, again, I talked about it yesterday in the video, DBFZ got criticized for having a small roster, you know what I mean? And it's, I think another thing as well, people aren't taking into consideration, I'm seeing people talk about all these other games back in the day or in modern times. It was like, oh, this game only had this many, that many, and they're naming like 1v1 games. I do think it matters a lot. It makes a big difference whether or not the game is 1v1 or a team game. And the more characters that are on your team, the bigger the roster has to be to compensate, in my opinion. I feel like that's just logical and that goes without saying, but I'm seeing so many conversations like in YouTube comments and Twitch chats and on Twitter, people like being like, oh, well, this game only launched with 20 characters. Nobody had a problem this game launched with 16. Yeah, it was 1v1. That makes a difference. And then when you bring up DBFZ, 24 compared to 20 makes a big difference, especially in a 4v4 game. That 4 extra characters matters a lot. That's a whole extra team that creates so many more permutations, so many other combinations that you can make in the game. You know what I mean? And that just allows for that many more people to get their favorite character in the game. And this is a game that has an extra team member compared to DBFZ. And again, DBFZ got criticized and scrutinized for having a small roster back then. And of course, with DLC and everything, the roster eventually expanded. A lot of people's favorites got added. And that's going to happen with this game as well. But, you know, how long will that take? We don't really know yet. Point is, 20 characters is very underwhelming and pretty disappointing for me personally. And look, here's the thing. It only takes one. It only takes one character to really resonate with you and kind of like make the game for you. But for me personally, I don't know about y'all, out of the 8 characters we've seen so far, I don't have one that really resonates with me. The character I probably liked the most so far in the game was Storm, but even then, to be completely honest with you, I was just playing because she's a baddie. I didn't really like her gameplay that much. You know what I'm saying? Like that was like my main in the game, but she's probably not going to be a character that I main at all. But I don't know, maybe because it's only 12 more characters that we don't know about. So like, and ideally you would like to have 4 that you actually really like because it's a 4v4 game. But you know, if you get at least 1 or 2 and then you just have 2 more there's just kind of like, they're just utility, then so be it, right? Because even in a game like DBFZ, you might have only had 1 or 2 characters that you really liked, and then the other 1 or 2 were just there as like, you know, your utility. Like this is my main and these are just here because they synergize well. Sure, so be it. Hopefully most of us have that one that really resonates with us, but right now I don't got that, so that's a concern of mine. I'm already mentally preparing myself to only have like 1 character on this roster that I actually really like. Another thing to keep in mind as well is that they mentioned at some point that they want to include characters on this roster that haven't really like been in games before, like characters that were like kind of different. So what that means is like out of these 12, it's gonna be some new characters that you didn't see in MVCR or Marvel's Capcom 1, 2, and 3 and everything, like, you know what I'm saying? It's gonna be some fan favorites that are inevitably left out, and you're gonna have to wait for them to show up as DLC, however long that takes. And then that might not even be season 1. You might get 4 to 5 characters a season, and your favorite character don't show up till season 3. You know what I'm saying? Like, it just, you know what I mean? I just pray that they learn from MVCI and like, I mean, obviously X-Men are already in the game, like Storm is there, but I mean more of them, which is probably going to be the case, and X-Men might get spammed because they talked about also having like these like in-game like teams and lore that you can learn about. We'll talk about that more in a moment. But yeah, you know what I'm saying? And let's say they do something like the Fantastic Four, right? Let's say they put the Fantastic Four in the game. That's 4 characters right there that might take up the base roster spots, and then you only have 8 left. Or if they get added as DLC, how does that work? Is a whole season just gonna be the Fantastic Four? Would they potentially work as 1 character? Kind of like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles did in Injustice. Or would that be split up amongst multiple seasons? You know what I'm saying? There's stuff like that. Or would they just be not in the game at all? You know what I'm saying? And then it's cans of worms with that no matter which way you go. You know what I'm saying? So this is something to consider. The roster is a concern just because it is a bit underwhelming. Obviously it will expand over time. They're talking about wanting to support this game for a while. I hope it succeeds and gets a ton of support, and hopefully these DLC seasons are really dope, but 20's kind of low. So with all of that being said, what do I hope or expect to see tomorrow at the State of Play? I don't know how long the spot for Tokon is going to be, but I don't imagine it's going to be that long, right? Like 5 to 10 minutes probably tops, you know what I mean? If that. So I think the number one most important thing, to be completely honest, is character reveals, okay? This game got announced almost a year ago, and we've had zero new characters announced, okay? And that's obviously the hot topic of conversation right now on social media is the roster. We got that Steam page that went up, I think it got taken down, but 20 characters, okay? People want to know who those remaining characters are. If you ask me, bare minimum, we need 2, but to be honest, probably 3 to 4 reveals in this trailer. And to be completely honest with you, that's probably me being like pretty like reserved or like conservative, because on social media and in the comments and stuff, I'm seeing people say they want to see the rest of the entire roster, which I do as well. That just might be a little bit like ambitious. Like, I don't really know, but like, you're gonna need to show a few characters. Like that should just go without, that should be the baseline. Like 2 to 3, maybe 4 characters minimum need to be shown at the State of Play. And honestly, ideally, yeah, the whole roster, because it's been an entire year. Like, you look back at like other like recent games, like, you know, like a KOF 15 where they were showing a character like every week, or even like Tekken 8 where they had like these trailers dropping, which felt like every week or every 2 weeks. You know what I'm saying? Like, these modern games like did it so much better. You know what I mean? So, you know, the lack of marketing, or the marketing in all the wrong places, was one of 2XKO's kind of like downfalls, and why that game isn't succeeding as much as people had hoped. I just hope Tokon doesn't follow down that same path. And I don't think that it will, but again, eyebrows raised. I'm just like, hey, you know. Number 2, I need a showcase of some single player content, okay? On that Steam page, they've mentioned something about an episode battle where you could learn more about the characters and the teams and their lore, and single player content sells games, okay? If you're so concerned, which they clearly are based on how they're designing this game, if you're so concerned about selling this game to the general audience, to casual players, to people who aren't diehard fighting game fans, and to a lot of people who are just Marvel fans, yes, that is what you need to do. Single player content, story mode, arcade mode, maybe some sort of customization aspect, whether it's just like the visuals or something like that. Like, I don't really know, but that is the type of thing that sells copies. Okay, they keep trying to dumb these games down more and more to cater to the casual audience, and I really think that more than anything, they care about single player content and ways to engage with the game that aren't just playing online and fighting against other people. That's what we care about, and that should be the #1 priority in a fighting game. But the person who's not, you know, booting up Street Fighter 6 and Tekken 8 every day, they don't care about playing ranked constantly. I firmly believe that NRS games, for example, sell so well, not just because of like their legacy, but also because of the single player content. People care a lot about the story modes in those games. And then you have like some of the customization aspect in the other game modes as well. Like, again, those games might not have the best longevity, but they sell copies. Similarly enough, Street Fighter 6 as well. Street Fighter 6 did basically everything right leading up to that game in terms of like the marketing, and you know, it's got a ton of content and the world tour and the avatars and the avatar battles and the costumes and all that stuff. And again, Street Fighter 6 is far from perfect, okay, but I think one of the reasons why that game is so successful and so popular is because of things like that, where it's more than just going online and playing ranked with, you know, random strangers, or just being able to jump into a lobby with your friends. So a showcase of some kind of that episode battle and any other single player content that you have, I believe, is a must. Especially if you're trying to appeal to a broader audience, which clearly you are. You can't just solely rely on the fact that you have the Marvel IP and just assume that that's going to sell copies, because that's the same mistake 2XKO made, which you're already better off there as well, because 2XKO, that has zero indication that it has anything at all to do with League of Legends. Marvel Tokon Fighting Souls, oh wait, that's clearly a Marvel fighting game, you know what I mean? Like, it's, so again, you're already doing better than them. I'm just saying, you know what I'm saying? Just keep it going. And the final thing that I think that we need from tomorrow's State of Play is some sort of release window. It doesn't have to be to the exact day. It ain't got to be June 26, 2026, but like a month and a year. We are mostly confident that the game is going to release this year. At least that's what we're all assuming. So if you got to say October 2026, November 2026, cool. But I feel like we should probably get that at this point, because it's been mostly radio silence outside of those 2 betas when it comes to this game. And again, I just feel like it's just a little concerning, because it's just like, no news, no information, no updates, no character reveals, no trailers, nothing, nada. So I really need this State of Play to be a banger for Tokon. Like, I don't expect them to have like a 10-20 minute slot, because again, like, the show's probably going to only be what, like an hour or two, the State of Play. I forget how long State of Plays usually go on for us, but they're only going to have like a few minutes, and so those few minutes better be gas, you know what I'm saying? So I'll be back here tomorrow react with my reaction and discussing whatever it is that they show at the State of Play, and hopefully it's a banger. You know what I'm saying? That's how I ended yesterday's video, saying that it better be a banger. So fingers crossed, man. But that's pretty much everything I wanted to talk about today. We got a little bit more in depth about Tokon specifically, things that I like, dislike, wanted to see, and everything of that nature. When it comes to characters I'm hoping to see, real quick, I never made like a dedicated roster video. I actually did sit down and do research on Marvel characters and went through like a bunch of different series and everything like that. And I made like a whole thing, and I just never made the video. But like characters I want to see the most, real quick: Wolverine, Cyclops, Psylocke. Those are like the big ones off the top of the head. Deadpool, Daredevil, Rogue. A lot of X-Men, honestly, which they're probably gonna end up spamming in this game because it's just within their best interest to do so. Gambit, Black Cat. Those would be some of my top picks. If I had to give you like my top 3, Psylocke, Gambit, and I'm gonna go probably Cyclops as like my top 3 characters that I would like to see. If I could get one of those in tomorrow's trailer, that would make me very happy, and hopefully they look sick. Anyway, that's gonna do it for today's video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Hit this video with a like if you did. Subscribe if you haven't already, so you can stay tuned for all the awesome content when I bring you. With all that being said, it's pretty much all I have today. Remember, let's get happy to swing the bat. Later.